What I'm going to show you today is quite honestly the most exciting literary document that I have ever had the amazing privilege of handling. It is contained within this rather handsome red leather box, the original hand-corrected typescript for Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's Le Petit Prince, The Little Prince. It is an extraordinary document, and I'm going to show you now. In the early 1940s, of course, France is under the control of the Nazis, and Vichy French government is in power, and it is no place for a committed anti-fascist such as Saint-Exupéry. So he had fled, like many people, Europe, and was living as a Frenchman in New York. He was living in the apartment of one of his many female friends, a lady called Sylvia, and it is there that he wrote in manuscript the story that would be published as Le Petit Prince. But in the process by which an author gets a book out of their imagination and onto the page and into published form, you have various stages. So there's the manuscript which he wrote and gave to Sylvia, which incidentally she then placed not long afterwards at the Morgan Library in New York. And it's there as one of their great treasures and is never coming out again. But then after the writing of the manuscript, the text needed to be brought into a typed up form that was, so it could begin to be more closely edited. So he personally types up the text again using a typewriter with 3 sheets of paper for each page. And this was doing what is producing some carbon copies. So there were 3 typescripts that were produced in that process. Of those 3 that are known, one of them was given by Saint-Exupéry to the Frenchman who translated it into English, Louis Galantière. That one is now at the Harry Ransom Center in Texas. He gave another copy to a French friend of his who is a pianist called Nadia Boulanger. That had some corrections in his hand, but was given to her. And that copy is one of the treasures at the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. Now, what's extraordinary about this one is 2 details. One is that it is the only one of the 3 that is not in the library. And the other detail is that this one, unlike the other 2, appears to be the one that he kept and made the most substantial of his own hand corrections to the text and getting it to the point where it could then be printed as the books that we now know today. So it really is the moment that captures the creative process of Saint-Exupéry, making The Little Prince. And there are some significant corrections in his hand in this copy that are unique to this copy, where we really capture details about the making of the text that are really revealing. But I'll show you. So you have here contained in this card folder, these are the pages of the typescript, this sort of evocative staples, and you really get to see the privilege of holding these kinds of documents where you see we're used to thinking of these kind of great world literature texts as being this sort of eternal thing, but actually you get to witness the kind of makeshift manner of their creation in documents like this. And rather endearingly, on the inside of the card folder, as you can imagine, anyone who's had a school notebook, you have inside the covers these nice sort of quotidian notes and calculations of accounts and scribbles and doodles, because Saint-Exupéry was also an artist and illustrator. He loved drawing faces, and here we have many faces that are characters that perhaps were working their ways into the evocative facial expressions of many of the characters that the Little Prince visits on his journey to various planets before reaching Earth. And actually, wonderfully, on the rear cover, there is a really nice drawing of this enigmatic little man that was the Little Prince. This character that clearly possessed Saint-Exupéry's imagination and stayed with him. And then inside the text, we can begin to see here, and even on the first page, something that is not present in this typescript, of course, are the color drawings that Saint-Exupéry produced himself to illustrate his text. But rather nicely, we can see here he's written dessin, drawing, design, showing where these sketches are supposed to go in the text. And as you go through, on almost every page, there's a hand correction of the author correcting and perfecting the process of getting this text into a publishable state. And there are 3 nice corrections which I'd like to focus on because they're rather interesting. One of them is where he has added the name of the asteroid B612, which is a nice little detail because, of course, we know that as a significant place in the story. And another one, very important, is where he's writing about in one of his images. He writes about in the typewritten text of this document, Manhattan, which is covered in buildings of 50 stories high. And what's really fascinating is to witness in this document that Saint-Exupéry has actually crossed that out and replaced it with an image about a remote island in the Pacific. Now, of course, he wrote the Manhattan phrase sitting in his apartment on Park Avenue, possessed with awe of New York in all of its bustling splendor and the vertiginous buildings. But it's really interesting to see him removing that from this text and correcting it to this far removed little island in the Pacific. And I think it's part of the important process by which Exupéry was trying to make this text non-specific, non-local, universal. And of course, that aspect is part of what has made this text so globally significant, so globally popular. The Little Prince is the most translated literary text, but it really speaks to its global profile. An extraordinary statistic, really. Another one is that it has sold more copies than Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone and The Hobbit put together. It's a serious privilege and very exciting to be actually holding something that gets anywhere near this close to its original creative process. And speaking of creative process, there is a really moving feature right towards the end where the Little Prince is talking to Le Renard, the fox. And this captures a moment which is the creation moment of a quote, which we now know as one of the most famous quotations that people keep in their hearts from Le Petit Prince. If you look it up on any list, it will come up top. And that is when he says, one can only see correctly with the heart. What is essential is invisible to the eye. But in this typed version, you have the phrase is originally slightly different. He hadn't yet introduced the key detail. And here it is, the most important thing is that which you cannot see. Now that's a compelling phrase, but it doesn't quite clinch it. And in fact, Saint-Exupéry had been rolling this phrase over in his mind and in various drafts, and you can witness in the other drafts in Texas, in Paris, and in the original manuscript, different versions of this phrase, but all of them don't have the key ingredient that unlocks this concept, which is le cœur, the heart. And in this document, we have, in his own hand-corrected typescript, we have the first time that Saint-Exupéry makes the breakthrough and writes for the first time, on ne voit bien qu'avec le cœur. One cannot see right except with the heart. And there's one other little feature that has found its way into this typescript, which I want to show to you because it is a really significant and actually rather poignant document. It's just a cheque signed by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, dated February 1943, and made out to Brooks Uniform Company on his Fifth Avenue Bank cheque. Now, the date and the Brooks uniform are extremely significant here because this was the moment, and this cheque captures the moment that Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who has been living in New York, but desperate to return to Europe to fight against Nazism as a pilot, finally decides to go to Brooks Uniform Company and asked them to make an approximation of the French uniform so he can leave America for good, return to Europe and fight. And as we know, not long afterwards was killed and never seen again in one of his aerial operations. Now, it was actually in this uniform that Saint-Exupéry, for the last time, visited his friend and lover, Sylvia, and gave her the original manuscript of the Petit Prince. So this check is an extremely evocative document, and it's really nice to have it retained alongside the original manuscript of the book. So it's very exciting to have this thing actually available, for purchase by a collector or by a museum. Of the three typescripts and the manuscript, which are the only kind of full creative documents that we know of that have survived, this is the only one that is, not in a museum. It's the only one that has ever been made available for purchase, which is just, very exciting. So we're fascinated to see what happens to it and to find the right custodian for this, thrilling document.